how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Notes of a Curious Mind. With me, Topher, my mind being the curious one. Every week we just sort of ask a different question and go, hey, why do humans do that? Or why this thing? And how did we get here? Or I don't know. I kind of look at my podcast, actually, kind of look at myself sometimes. But I definitely look at my podcast and maybe my whole YouTube channel now as sort of if I was an alien and I sort of was just taking this outside look at humanity, just how on earth did they get to that? Well, on Earth, yeah, I suppose, only on Earth. How did they get to this point? Why do they think this way, and why do they process this way? And I say they like I'm separate. I know I'm not separate. Obviously, my greatest case study is always going to be myself, which is where I start with everything. You know, how does this relate to me? What can I learn from it? And is there something to evolve and grow me? Can I absorb another perspective here? Or, you know, I definitely relate it back to me, but certainly my podcast and evidently just now my YouTube channel as a whole, I did not expect it to go in this direction. But it has. It's ended up talking about politics, society, capitalism, all of those kinds of topics, I suppose, you know, which I guess in a roundabout way was what I wanted to do with the podcast. It just wasn't necessarily what I intended for the whole channel. But I don't know what else I am supposed to do. I don't necessarily have at all any form of like a real platform right now. I'm just really getting started with my YouTube channel, and over on my TikTok I am on my way to like 10,000 followers and stuff, but my community on TikTok and on Patreon is mostly surrounding, you know, spirituality and self-improvement, and, you know, just sort of playing with the idea of other ways of being spiritual and stuff and things like that. Incorporating psychology and human behavior and yeah, things like, you know, bigger subjects like society and capital. Everything kind of does draw back into each other, but over on TikTok and Patreon I focus it more in a spiritual direction, where I'm noticing with my YouTube channel, obviously I'm posting my spiritual stuff here just as a means of having it all in one place, but it just seems to be more going in the direction of the world, you know, civilization, humanity, rather than just spirituality, right? So yeah, I kind of feel like it's just unavoidable. I don't really know what else I'm supposed to do with everything that is going on. I can't, you know, I still want to make videos where I'm just sharing my weird recipes, and I still want to make stupid shorts sharing hilarious things about red letter media or the music that I listen to or something like that. And yes, I still want to do my speed art videos where I just, you know, show you, hey, look, this is something cool I did with my digital avatar. But they're just all taking a back seat because it's how can I not talk about it? Do you know what I mean? How can people not be talking about it? Not necessarily all of the time. I have ways of switching off and switching out. I allow myself to be just human and escape into something, whether that's video games, movies. This weekend is going to be the first episode of Britain's Got Talent, which is literally my favourite TV show in the whole wide world. Whatever got talent. Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, China's Got Talent, Ukraine's Got Talent, India's Got Talent. I don't care what got talent. It's my favourite thing in the whole wide world, is just watching people be either insanely good at something or possibly insanely bad, and it's just lovely that they enjoy doing what they do, you know? I don't care. I just freaking love the whole entire thing. I would, you know... Again, kind of like an alien. I feel like things like, not all of talent shows, right? Because some of them are just like, oh God, like, can we just stop? You know, like, celebrities don't need any more airtime, all right? We're good with that. But regular everyday people, possibly, you know, somebody who has been doing something for generations in their family, somebody who is self-taught because they just learned through YouTube videos, somebody who is, you know, been professional and since they were a child and it's just never had their big break. I don't care, whatever. It's just a huge selection of raw talent, and sometimes not talent, which is also equally as entertaining. You know what I mean? Take away the judges. I don't even need to remove all of the judges and just let me see these people. And it's like, that's the best of humanity. So that's like what we can do. Look at the things. Look at the things we can do when we dedicate, when we are allowed to and afforded to, and give ourselves the discipline, the dedication, the energy, and the time into the things that we love, rather than, you know, trying to reach some kind of hierarchy that capitalism and society presents us and stuff, you know. So I do think it's the best. That's why I love watching the show. Okay, so I do allow myself to be human and just escape into things. And, you know, I think it's really important that we allow ourselves to idealize things sometimes. I notice there are so many people who are just like, no, everything is logic, everything is science and maths, and there's nothing outside of that, you know. Imagination and creativity don't matter, and spirituality, I suppose, and, you know, just the wondrous, curious exploration of the possibility of other things. No, those things, if it's not actually factually 100% real and happening and proven and blah 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 blah, then don't place your energy and your time into it. And I'm like, well, if that's not capitalism, I don't really know what is. Pixar didn't happen, eh? Because as far as I'm concerned, imagination, creativity, the ability to perceive something beyond what the current is, something better than what the current is what creates things. How the freaking hell do you think that we have evolved this way? If at any point, all of the time, any people just decided, okay, that's enough now, all right? Everything that is just going to be this, and there's nothing else beyond that. Stop proving things, yeah? Like, once upon a time, we could not prove that the Earth was round. Yeah? People could not prove that the Earth was round. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not saying necessarily that, like, I don't even know if they really cared about it back then too much and stuff, but now we prove science fiction is a precursor to science fact. Hey, or fiction sometimes is just a precursor to fact. Right? It might not come about in the exact fictional way that we are imagining, but in some metaphorical, what's the other word? Analogy. Some kind of metaphor or analogy can be there, right? Like, for example, superheroes, right? Superheroes are superheroes in the movies and in the comic books, and we know, right, they fly and they can punch through walls, they got laser eyes, and I don't know, that guy can go over here and do some, this guy's invisible, I'm Wolverine, like, got all a whole bunch of stuff and whatever, right? Now, obviously, in the physicality of the 3D physical world, that's not happening, right? What's the closest we could probably do right now is maybe something Iron Man-ish, you know, the cool suit thingy, but man, it would just be ugly and horrible. And no, nobody's really actually a superhero, right? But we do understand that the metaphor stands. There are people who are in this world who save people. They save people. A community outreach officer, yeah? Just living his life. She's doing her thing. He ain't got no worries about, like, you know, being some kind of superstar, this, that, and everything else. She ain't thinking about whether or not she's going to get some kind of extra title of this, blah, 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 blah. The only thing that they care about is the seeing of the betterment of another person. That's a superhero. At the expense of their own selves sometimes, right? Which is why I'm like, hey, that's great, but you kind of got to go to, like, Professor Xavier's School of Mutants first, right? You got to learn how to harness your superpower, right? Some people's superpower is just entertaining. It's just making people laugh. The ability to remove a person from the current state of what is, from that physical 3D crap, you know, and just place them somewhere else. What are you going to tell them? That's not real. That's not real. Get back here to the misery. Get back to the suffering. Get out of the fantasy. No. There is such value in imagination and in fantasy. And I think it's really, really important for us to be able to have things that whilst these other things are going on, and yes, I feel like, what else am I supposed to do but talk about it, but think about it, but research things, start studying everything, sharing information. I don't freaking care. What else am I supposed to do? But I do also need to switch off. I need to be able to switch off. I need to be able to tune out, and I need to be able to allow myself to be human, right? Can't be a superhero just yet. Still gotta be human too, right? Can't save everyone all of the time. Okay, you guys, so today's episode, I did just have a ramble at the top there. Sorry. Maybe I'll do that every episode, I don't know. But I did just want to talk about a few things. My channel's going in a random direction that I never really expected, because I just feel like, not that I don't have an option, I always have an option, you know, but I just want to. I feel like when I used to read about things from certain world wars, specifically the most recent one, I always just thought to myself, like, how could somebody stay quiet? Like, why would you not be talking about it all of the time? You know, I think even if I got in trouble from a young age, I was like, it's okay to be in trouble. Like, talk about these things. Like, that's the thing that they don't want you to do, is pass information, because that's what creates that critical thought and that curiosity, that injection of another perspective or another way of thinking could possibly open up somebody's eyes to something else and maybe wake them up. And that's what I'm gonna do. So that's the way my channel is going, fine. That's the way my podcast is going, fine. Just talk. Everybody talk. In whatever way, okay? So yeah, we do, but I do need to get into a deep dive. I need to get into these deep dives, because one of my biggest questions about, I did this recently with Boris Johnson and Theresa May and Liz Truss, and previous to that as well, a little bit, but I got to this point where I just was wondering, I think maybe it was Brexit or something like that, where I asked the question, how did my country get to this point? What led so many people to believing these things, to wanting thinking that they want the things that they want, and who got in charge, and how did they get in charge, and what did they do to make people think these things? And so I just went through our history. I went back like 100,000 years. I literally went back to, like, not Neanderthals, or Homo sapiens and stuff. No, whatever the other one was before us. Because I was just like, where did we come from? Like, where did the humans that populate this place come from? So I went right back, and I was looking at the migration things and stuff, and found out about, you know, we lost the land between France and Britain, and then, you know, as people started going over and coming back during the Ice Age, but then one time I think they got trapped here or something, and that's when they started populating this place a bit more, as in the landmass of Scotland, Wales and England. When it got cold, I believe they went over to Ireland, whatever it was called back then. And then when it got warmer, they came back. And then I think 1 year something happened and they couldn't get back or something. Or maybe it was between France and Britain. Or anyway, long story short, they got stuck here, and that's when they began to populate and stuff. And over time, you know, they separate out and they're starting to sort of gather land. And I noticed, I was trying to like pick up, where does the sort of psychological, social thing come in to sort of section off land and to start owning things? And where did the switch come in from owning things as a means of prospering and surviving, or surviving and then prospering, and then switch over to the more we need more, the more I have, then the better I am in social standing or something, you know? So I was looking at things like Romans and the introduction of, you know, the idea of gold being like a fancy thing, you know, like the more gold you have, the more land mass you have, the more. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of seeing the shift and blah 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 blah. And I went all the way through, started looking at kings and stuff, and all of that stuff being sectioned off, and kings of counties and stuff, and we had quite a few of them, and then, you know, one of them like, I want more and I'm gonna have the whole thing and blah 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 blah, and then we end up with this one and we've got this monarchy and blah blah, the introduction of things like religion, and then obviously with the Church of England specifically for us, the introduction of that and that playing into the part of the way people think and controlling the means and the masses and, you know, all of those kinds of things. I mean, I'm just going through everything, literally, and now I'm at the point where I'm like, America, how did you get to this point? Where did it start? Where was the shift? What was it? What things contributed to it? Not what was the shift, because there's many shifts, you know, but just like I did with my own country, like how? And then taking that, so I'm doing that a little bit more, you know, on my own and stuff, and in the podcast I wanted to be a little bit, obviously a bit more specific with subjects and stuff, and given the current circumstances and the current people who are in charge, it just seems like that's the place I need to / I want to start. So I'm going to start with Donald Trump. I need to know, how did that get created? Who created that? What series of events created that? Why is Donald Trump? Why are you these things? And so the first place to start, I suppose, is the childhood. I'll just go straight to the childhood. Who raised you? How did they raise you? What kind of person was it that raised you? Because sometimes how they raised you is not necessarily as important as just who they are as a person. Who they are as a person is definitely going to have a much more of an impact on a child than how they, like, it's still, how they raise them is still going to have an impact, right? But children pay attention. You could be strict and disciplined and all these things with your child, but if you are a lazy this, that, and everything else and blah, 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 it's going to have an effect on that child. They're either going to grow up excessively one way or the other because they're incredibly confused. So let's have a look. I just want to have a look at his childhood. Okay, so we've got a few things here. Okay, let's have a look from ABC News.
It's a story that begins about 15 miles away from his victory party 70 years ago in Jamaica Estates, a wealthy neighborhood in Queens, New York.
You can't understand Donald without looking at his childhood.
Donald J. Trump lived in this ornate home, the fourth of 5 children.
He did not grow up as a middle-class kid. The family had chauffeurs. He was taken to school in a limousine. He never had to work regular jobs.
He described his mother, Mary, a Scottish immigrant, as the perfect housewife. His father, Fred, was a millionaire real estate developer. The Trump patriarch has been described as a human machine, driven.
His father was, he was a demanding guy, and he did very much push Donald, and Donald in some ways was the chosen son.
That ambition was unmistakably prevalent in young Donald's DNA.
Okay, so it does seem like, I mean, he said that he was, supposedly possibly like the favorite child, right? Why would he be the favorite child? He's the 4th out of 5. 3 of them are older, 1 of them is younger. Why would he be the favorite child? Is it that the boys would have probably been favored over the girls in the sense of, business and success and sort of making something of themselves, and possibly the father, projecting that onto them, like, I've made something of myself, and I'm gonna need to find out about his dad. Let's have a look at his dad.
It's tough to separate Donald Trump from his hometown of New York City. In fact, his family has a long history in the Big Apple, starting with his grandparents. Friedrich and Elizabeth Trump were both born in Karlstadt, Germany, and actually grew up across the street from one another. In the 1880s, Friedrich ventured to North America, making a small fortune during Alaska's gold rush, operating restaurants and brothels.
I mean, number one, the irony, of course, we all know that his family, his grandparents were immigrants and stuff. Everybody knows that. That's just what makes the cognitive dissonance so much more when he does talk about those kinds of things. However, this brothel thing, I didn't know that part. And that, again, like, okay, you him and his pageants and stuff, and maybe just generally the way that he views women, and it's a lot of things are contributing to that, of course, but I did not know the brothel part, okay?
After Friedrich returned to Germany and married Elizabeth in 1902, the young couple left for a place where all immigrants could find a home, New York City. The city part of that was relatively new. The 5 boroughs had only formally incorporated 4 years prior. The Trumps first settled in with Friedrich's sister in Morrisania, a rapidly growing German neighborhood in the Bronx. Today, a nail salon occupies their old address. But even though they lived amongst their countrymen, Elizabeth quickly became homesick. After giving birth to their first child, also named Elizabeth in 1904, the growing family traveled back to Deutschland. But the German government wouldn't allow Friedrich to regain his citizenship, claiming he had only left for America in the first place to avoid the German Empire's mandatory military service.
Because a lot of things run in the family. Good Lord. Do you think with Trump, that's the ultimate representation of what it looks like to not break your generational cycles? It just goes on and on and on. And if you, if you don't break it, it's like a curse. It just goes on and on. The brothels, the pageants, escaping mandatory military service by going to America, escaping or escaping his draft or whatever it was by claiming he had bone spurs. Can you imagine, you guys? That's what the multiverse is, right? This is the curious part. Imagine if Friedrich had not been denied access back to Germany, to Deutschland. What would life look like? Oh my gosh, would there even be? I mean, there would be Trumps, but what would... the universe really does work in mysterious ways, you guys. I'm not saying that, there was necessarily, so much intention, I suppose, behind it, but come on. If that hadn't happened, what if they just didn't know that he that he ran to escape his military service? What if they were just oh, hey, welcome back, mate, how's it been going? Yeah, it's crappy over there, innit? Welcome back to Deutschland. And then he just got on with his life, and he lived with the...
To provide for his young family, Friedrich set up a barber shop in Lower Manhattan, shaving and trimming men of finance at 60 Wall Street, now the headquarters of Deutsche Bank. But Friedrich wouldn't be satisfied with cutting rich men's hair for long. He wanted to be the one in the chair.
So again, it's still just stemming from a place of... I'm not saying that it's necessarily greedy for him to want to be the person in the chair, but he's come to a land and to a world where... the idea of the American dream is, you work your way up to the top. And if you are innocently immigrant, legal or not, if, you just don't know those things. You don't know that that's not the way that it's designed. You don't know that it's just, it's only for those that are at the top to keep leeching off those many that are at the bottom, most that are at the bottom. So yeah, of course he wants to be the person sat in the chair. It's just let's have a look, see how he's going to go about it.
So, in September 1908, he bought his first property as an investment, a 2-story dwelling in the Woodhaven neighborhood of Queens. To supplement his income, he took up a job as manager at the German-owned Medallion Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. All was good for the Trumps, but like many German immigrants in the U.S., they faced extreme bias after the outbreak of World War I. To appear more American, Friedrich Trump became Frederick Trump. Interestingly, his son Fred Trump would go on to further reject his German ancestry, claiming the family was Swedish in order to appeal to Jewish renters.
I see. So I suppose it's once Friedrich, grandfather, discovered that real estate was the way forward, or at least back then, that's sort of where the switch took place. When Trump's dad, seeing his father do that, also rejecting or at least disguising or lying about his German heritage, also for real estate purposes. Somewhere along the line, they figured out that somebody told them, or they learned, or whatever, they figured out that real estate was which is interesting, because Trump, as in Donald Trump, and real estate don't go very well together. I mean, Donald Trump and business don't go well together. But Donald Trump and real estate don't go well together. So what did he not learn? Is it just that he's stupid?
Back in 1918, America experienced one of its most dangerous epidemics, the Spanish flu. Influenza killed over 21 million people worldwide that year, including Frederick Trump. Elizabeth went on to manage her deceased husband's budding real estate company, now entitled Elizabeth Trump and Son, the son being Fred. Until he was of age, Elizabeth bought and sold property, built homes, and arranged mortgages, all while sewing for her neighbors on the side. Fred soon took over the business, and over the course of several decades, built it into the family empire his son Donald would inherit.
So yeah, it seems like Donald's dad, Fred, was learning from his mother, or from his father, but then from his mother as well, right? And I'm wondering, like, what changed? Because it seems that Trump was not around his parents, or certainly his father, maybe in that same capacity, because he just doesn't seem to have learned anything. You know, is it possible that they, you know, wanted to give their children, you know, the absolute world, coming from a father? I want to sit in this chair. I want to be the one who gets driven around and wears shiny shoes and has fancy haircuts and stuff. And I want to give my children that life and that world as well. And then in doing so, as he is doing that, his direct son, Donald Trump's father, is learning from him, is watching him, is seeing him do these things, because as he's building himself up, he doesn't have necessarily the money or the finances to pay for, you know, somebody to just take care of the kid or somebody to just drive him around. Like, that had to be created. And I feel like Donald Trump's dad had a chance to see that. And then with his mother taking over as well, Donald Trump's grandmother taking over as well, he got a direct, still more learning, you know, he maybe was more part of the process, you know, and in wanting to give their children the world and that thing passing on, Donald Trump maybe just, and the other children as well, didn't get that kind of insight into the way that their parents do things, didn't learn the ins and outs of businesses, perhaps, you know, or perhaps none of that is true, and he was absolutely a part of it and just did not learn anything. Maybe he's just stupid. All right, let's have a look into his mother. She's Scottish. Oh my God, she's a MacLeod. Colin MacLeod. I love MacLeods.
In this remote Scotland town lies the untold story of President Trump's mother. Mary Ann MacLeod grew up poor in the fishing village of Tongue in the Scottish Highlands. Mary Ann lived in this gray Pebble Dash house with her parents and 9 siblings. Stephen says when Mary Ann was growing up, times were tough.
You have displaced communities. Remember, this is the aftermath of the First World War, between the wars, uneasy political times, depression. So here we have somebody trying to, well, really with very little choice, right, but to try to make a new life.
Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to pause there a second, because I just really want to say that totally feeds into my point that I was just making of kind of wanting to go to America for a better life, right? That's what so many people want to do. And I was going to say, maybe not today, but for a long time, it's this idea of this American dream. Anybody can go there and make it, even if you just want to own a little barbershop, or maybe you want to be a retail salesperson, or maybe you want to be a real estate mogul or something like that. Like, but actors, models, artists of all kind, chefs. Like, America's where you go to make it, right? If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. Oh wait, that's New York. Well, yeah. So just so you know, 90% of the rest of the world thinks that the entirety of America is either New York or Texas, okay? Or maybe LA as well. But you get my point, right? If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. Like, it's this dream. And here is another person. She's grown up in a tiny little town. She's from a family where you have 9 children in a community, in a society where you can't sustain, like, really even yourself. You're going to grow up totally in survival, right? Even if she's a young child and having the best time of her life and stuff, she's still going to see these things from her parents. She's still going to have struggles with things like, you know, wanting things, having things, being able to have things. I know because we grew up on the poverty line. This is kind of the system that I grew up here in my city and stuff. We've got so many people, and there's just everyone's on the poverty line, all different kinds of benefits flying everywhere and all this kind of stuff or whatever. It's like we are we're not the ghetto, like my whole entire city is not the ghetto, but in my city, which is what would be technically the ghetto, that's where I grew up, so right, that's just my streets, it's my ends, yo, it's my ends. So I know what these kinds of people are like, and they just want the best. They want the best for their children. And some people will go about it in the worst possible ways and steal and lie and cheat. And some people will work their butts off to try and get there and this, that, and everything else, and end up in all kinds of debt and credit thingies and all of these kinds of things. You know, and one or two maybe can push through that glass ceiling and stuff. And, you know, of course, times have changed and there are other ways of making money and all of the and resources and stuff now, but generally speaking, that is absolutely how a lot of populaces work in low income communities. And so when she's going over there, I don't know if she married, and we'll find out. I don't know if she married before or after she left. Did she leave there and then she met Fred Trump, Donald's dad, and then got married, or did they meet there and then they went over there? But one way or the other, you know, she has got this mindset. Of course she wants the best for her children. Of course she does. She wants to give them everything that she didn't have growing up, right? And Fred Trump possibly was a means of that, because at this point his father, Donald Trump's grandfather, had already worked himself up, and then when he passed, Donald Trump's grandmother took over and carried on, like generating and creating and building, you know, a real estate legacy, let's call it, right? So he's coming into her life, whether or not she met him in Ireland or whether or not she met him in America. Fred Trump is coming into this woman's life and being like, hey, literally everything you ever wanted, in the form of, you know, money and resources and things like that. So yeah, like, I want to know a bit more like the emotional connection side of things as well. I feel like it's very clear that Fred Trump, possibly loved his children, but loved his children in a very transactional kind of sense. Do you know what I mean? I don't know about Mary Trump.
In 1930, when she was only 17 years old, Mary Ann McLeod packed her bags and left her tiny, humble hometown to move all the way to New York City, where she planned to work as a maid. She left home with only $50 in her pocket and no plans to return.
There you go. So she left very young as well, looking for more. She was probably just sick and tired. I don't know which number she was in the 10 children that there were. He said she had 9 siblings or something, so 10 children, and she probably felt like, I need to go and find something for me. I don't want to be stuck in this, and I can respect her for that. That's how my mum felt about the village she grew up in, to a certain extent. That's how I felt about my city, you know, and then I was lucky enough to go and do that. And so yeah, I mean, it's just fair enough, you know. I want to see how they met. How did they meet?
She goes to work as a maid in the closest thing to an American castle that existed then, the Carnegie household.
Mary Ann lived in this building in Astoria, Queens, when she met an up-and-coming real estate developer, Fred Trump, at a party. They quickly married in 1936.
I mean, again, what would life be like if they hadn't have met? If they met at a party? What if they didn't, because she just met someone else, or he met someone else? Like, how different history would be. There's how just 10 seconds possibly. Oh, hello, Mr. Person or whatever, would you like a drink, because I'm the maid who is working at this Carnegie place, right? And then just that one meeting. What if it was just another server who did that? What if he just happened to not be there for that one? But I don't know. Like, oh God, so many options. We are here at this point, but I do still like to imagine. Right? But she's making a good point here. Is it's not enough for his mum to have like come up from below, if that makes any sense. Reminds me of Futurama. I reference Futurama a lot. It's like Futurama, how the mutants live in the sewers and stuff, and they're not allowed on the surface. That's kind of like how Trump sees it, right? I can't tell, or I don't want people to know that at any point my family came from anything that wasn't already here and rightfully American or whatever, you know, or possibly just not German or not poor. Don't be German and don't be poor. That's maybe what he learned from his dad. That's what he learned. Obviously other things too, but no, maybe not don't be German. Maybe not even don't be German, but be American. Forget about don't be German, but be American. Be American and don't be poor. Be this and don't be that. And possibly some other things as well, like, you know, don't be a girl. Probably. It'd be interesting to see his mum and his dad's relationship together and how, you know, he saw that growing up, you know. How was she treated? How did she treat his father? Just the dynamics there of what he possibly learned about the difference between being a woman and being a man. Being, you know, subservient versus being dominant, things like that. And one, because this lady, I mean, it says here that their relationship was reportedly sometimes rocky. Is that because he felt ashamed of the fact that she came from a poor family? Or is that the fact that because of the way that he maybe followed in his dad's footsteps of just be American and don't be poor, she maybe found it hard to connect with him and, you know, maybe felt a little bit ashamed or something like that.
The mother and son relationship reportedly wasn't always warm and fuzzy. He tends to avoid speaking about his mom's modest upbringing.
Up from the bootstraps isn't really his thing, right? It's the Trump name is synonymous with class. It's classy. It's royal. It's gilt. It's gold.
Trump was the next to youngest of 5 children. The oldest, Fred Jr., had little interest in the family business. Trump says he died young from alcoholism, and that taught the candidate a lesson.
My brother was absolutely, to a certain extent, in an important way, a mentor, because he used to really hit me hard when I was so much younger. Don't drink and don't smoke.
So if he's 8 years older, he died at the age of 42, 6, so 34, he was 34 years old. But he had already been drinking since the age of 20-ish, so Trump would have been 12? Just these things affect people as they're growing up, right? So he's made the decision, I'm never going to drink because I can see what it does to somebody through his older brother. Okay, so I can see, like, because if his older brother, because I was wondering, like, okay, somebody, like, earlier on they mentioned about him being the favourite son, the favourite child. And I'm like, okay, maybe not favourite in that sense, but if that is the case, then, like, where did that come from? Because obviously there are other children around. Okay, fair enough. Maybe Fred Trump, their father, wouldn't place too much of the favoritism on the girls just because, you know, yeah. But then why Donald Trump instead of the eldest one? You know, it's usually, sort of, stereotypically, it would go to the eldest son, like the firstborn son or whatever. But once he decided that he was going to be a pilot instead and not take over the family business, maybe that's when the attention turned then to the next son. Perhaps their dad was very disappointed what led Freddie, the eldest brother, to drink in the first place, right? Was he possibly very disappointed in him? You know, what kind of his own internal issues was he going through that, you know, led him to drink so much? And then excessively, obviously, after he got divorced, it was clear that he was using alcohol as a means of escapism. So, and, you know, numbing the pain and all the other things that they do. So, why, Freddie? What's your story? And then what then would have young Donald Trump seen and heard growing up, either through his brother or towards his brother or from his brother, all right? And then if he made the decision to not drink because of what happened to his brother, I mean, he must have cared about him to some extent for it to have such an effect on him. Like, oh, that hit a bit close to home. Even if I only care about myself at the age of, 34 or whatever it was. Even if I only care about myself at the age of 34 and stuff, that still hit close enough to home that no, because he'd made a decision well before that to not drink. Which means he'd made that decision as he was growing up, watching his brother be an alcoholic as he grew up. So, what did he see and what did he hear that possibly framed the way that he thinks about success and business and getting as much of as possible and being seen as the best and the this and the that? Does it come from perhaps, seeing the disappointment that his father had in his elder brother for one reason or another, for many possible reasons? Perhaps even just the reason, I decide I'm going to be a pilot instead. Who knows how their father took that? Not to mention, obviously, the other children. But I do think for some reason, I think his eldest brother clearly has had the most impact on him. Right, his eldest sister has had some sort of an impact in terms of being a federal judge and stuff, and he once did say about her, maybe being Supreme Court Justice, Supreme Court SCOTUS or whatever it is, but it turns out that she's pro-abortion, so that was a big no-no. But yeah, seems like the connection with his eldest brother is sort of where it's at. They perhaps were treated differently to the girls, because at that point, by the time Donald Trump had come along, he was the fourth of 5, which means the 2 girls had already been born by that point. And the Elizabeth, the second daughter, is 5 years older than him. So, and again, maybe just being treated differently, the girls being maybe isolated, not like literally necessarily in a physical sense, but just off in a different world and being afforded and given a completely different kind of insight and stuff from their father, or maybe not at all from their father, than of course the boys were. So, it's very possible that Donald Trump was very close with his older brother in the first sort of years of their life. Maybe for Fred Trump, it was like, oh yeah, I finally got a younger brother. By that point, he's 8 years old, and it's, I don't know, maybe exciting for him, or, finally he can share something with her because he's been surrounded by 2 sisters for 5 years. It's just all these little things that just play into growing up as just part of being a kid. You're like a little sponge like that, So it's interesting, to see how, okay, so if he is not getting some kind of escapism in the form of, alcohol and this and everything else, it seems to have manifested in different ways for Donald Trump, doesn't it? Control, uber total, utter control. I have to control the way that people see me, because I've grown up being taught, be American as you can and don't talk about where we came from, and don't be poor and talk about where you came from. So being taught that at a very young age, just seeing it from the people around him, from his own father, saying, no, we're Swedish, we're not German, we're Swedish. We're whiter than that. Swedish are super white, right? I think at that time, obviously, it was more specifically because of the animosity towards Germans around World War I, and then possibly II as well, but certainly around World War I. So, yeah, we're Swedish. We're non-partial. We're impartial to everything all of the time. Having grown up and seeing that, be this way and don't be this way, and then possibly being born and maybe attaching quite close to his brother, and his brother being told also and learning, be this way, don't be this way, clearly evidently leading him somewhat towards needing to escape in the form of alcoholism and stuff like that. I wonder if going to be a pilot, it says yes that he really wanted to go and be a pilot, but I wonder if it's just he wanted to just get away, possibly. He just wanted to get away from pressure, expectation, from living in a world that's so that was restricted, possibly by his father. We don't know. But yeah, I'm just a curious mind. Where does this come from? How does it lead here? And then Donald Trump learning those things not only from his father but from his brother as well, and then not wanting to go the way that his brother did, perhaps because of perhaps the way that his father reacted towards him or something like that. Because he's just so hell-bent on being this and not being something else, and whether or not it's true or it's a lie, you know, the amount that he talks about, I am the best of this and I've got the most of this and it's the best and the greatest and the blah blah blah. It seems like he just needs to convince people, even if it's not true. He just seems to need to convince people that he is this or he isn't that or whatever. And that might come from that place of, you know, being taught that primarily by his father, but then also seeing the response perhaps when his brother did maybe not be that, by going to be a pilot and by becoming an alcoholic and, you know, divorcing and throwing the son and everything else. Like, it's perhaps these are things that create this belief system of this. Even if it's not true, if I can just convince everybody else that it is, then I'll be okay, things will be okay, I will be successful or whatever, because that's what Daddy said. Essentially, that's what Daddy said. I mean, I'm not even going to get into the later years and stuff. I'm going to talk about all of the business stuff. I want to talk about The Apprentice and all of those kinds of things, even before we get into his political arc, his political villain arc. I just want to talk about the early years first, like it's the childhood, you know? And these are a lot of things that I didn't really know. Some of these things, yeah, but I didn't know about his older brother. I didn't know about the whole alcoholism thing. I did know that he didn't drink, and I thought I was talking about it recently, and I was like, it's weird actually. He doesn't ever appear to be drinking or on any kinds of, like, you know, psychedelic narcotic things and stuff. Maybe he takes meds or whatever, but, you know, that might make him do lally or whatever, but he just doesn't ever appear to be. And I was saying, I think it's because he wants to be in this certain element of constant control all of the time, right? I need to be in control of myself. I need to be in control of the way that people see me. I need to be in control of the perception of me, right? And I'm like going through these early years, I can see how, okay, maybe that really comes from, number one, his dad saying, do be this and don't be this. And then also coming from his brother as well, and maybe seeing what alcoholism does to a person, maybe the kinds of things that they do and say and act like. It maybe was very scary for him as he was growing up to watch his older brother, maybe a source of security and comfort for him, and solidarity for him, turning into this alcoholic monster, right? That must have been very traumatic and whatever. And so for him, drinking is just, don't ever do that. Don't ever, ever, ever do that. I'd never, ever want to be like that. I never want to get crazy like that. I've seen what it can do, or maybe I've seen the way that my dad reacts to it, and that's not how you become successful, or that's how, you know, Daddy tells me what not to be and what to be and stuff. And the closest I can emulate that, even if it's not real, then the better I will be in Daddy's eyes or something, you know? And all of it just contributing, so many different things contributing. What a complex human being that has somehow turned out with the most simplest, stupidest of minds. How a series of events can just create a monster. Ugh. Yeah, not to mention, of course, like I said, The Apprentice, the society that he grew up in, and the kind of world he grew up in. We won't talk about those kinds of specific things, but we're just going to do the early years for now, because that's a lot to soak up. That is a lot to soak in. And yeah, you know, I don't know. People can call me crazy or whatever, but I feel sorry for young Donald Trump. I don't feel sorry for 70-whatever-year-old Donald Trump at all in any way whatsoever. And for many, many years previous Donald Trump. But young Donald Trump, a child, going through things and seeing all of this crap and hearing what he's hearing and just being so absolutely, utterly, completely confused by what he's being told versus what's being portrayed to him. And yeah, I do feel sorry for him. No child should have to go through these things. They should just be. Can't wait to do Elon Musk. I feel like that childhood's going to be just as riveting. A lot to learn. A lot to unfold, right? A lot of these men in charge with their massive issues with their mothers and fathers and stuff, just inflicting the manifestation of that trauma, whatever that means for them, whether that's ego, whether that's power, money, whatever it is, attention, don't care. It manifests itself and they inflict it on everyone. It's just these people are the people who are doing it on the entirety of the entire world. Well, they're trying to anyway. They're trying to do it, and certainly to the country, in Trump's case, to his own country. Let me just inflict and take out all of my issues on everyone. I love you so much, America. You know, but I love the America that does it. I love the idealized America. I do. I do believe it exists. I do believe it can be created. I do believe it's going to take a heck of a lot more time. And I do believe things are going to get worse before they get better. But that is what I believe. That actual dream of America, what it can be, what it is ideally represents, and it can be created. And it will be created of a history of blood and sweat and tears. It will be created of a history of misogyny and what's the word? Racism and division and hate and greed and but it will be built nonetheless. I do believe in America. I do. And I suppose it's going to take that, even a shred of belief, for people to want to keep fighting for it, keep talking about it, keep dreaming of it, keep pushing for it, keep whatever it is that you can do in your little life as Americans or non-Americans. Who gives a crap? The rest of the world does care about you, I promise. We really do. And if that shred of hope is that what it takes, then so be it. I don't care. I'm here for it, okay? You guys helped us out millions times or whatever. So, you know, I just feel like it's my turn. It's my turn. Okay, guys, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm not sure what we're going to go into next. I might take a route and go back to things like talking about beauty standards and social media. But the only thing is, it's just I really don't know. I'm just going to go with the flow on it and stuff. Maybe I'll put out a poll again on my YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not, if you're listening to this anywhere else. So I might do a deep dive next time. Might just carry on and go into what's next with Donald Trump. Might switch over to Elon Musk. I do want to do Vance, and I want to do hedge theft, and I want to do Lara Trump, and what's the education secretary lady, that one, not Elizabeth Warren, oh my god, the WWE lady, oh my god, I can't remember what her name is, RFK, of course. That one's going to be fascinating. But yeah, I think Donald Trump he's going to require sort of breaking down a little bit more, maybe Elon Musk as well, because I just need a bit more time. I just need a little bit more time. So yeah, make sure that you are subscribed or follow it or whatever, wherever you're listening to. Leave a comment, leave a like, blah, blah, blah. I know this is mostly just me rambling and stuff, but yeah, like it was just... I am just threading this out live, like as I am recording. I don't really come to my podcast with an entire script and stuff. I literally am just doing the research as we are doing this. So if you liked it, you liked it. If you didn't, you didn't. You know what? Just let me know either way, because engagement is key. Okay? I love you guys so much, and I will speak to you in the next one.